Well, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're hanging in there. Not having heard much from me over the past week, you might be wondering, what do priests do when so much is canceled? Well, I can assure you that nature abhors a vacuum. Father Langan and I are working hard to do as much as we possibly can for your spiritual well-being. Admittedly, a lot of that is behind the scenes. There's a lot of day-to-day matters to tend to. Some of these things are just things that support the overall mission of the salvation of souls, and there's a good deal of problem solving that comes with things changing so frequently, whether weekly or sometimes daily. And with Holy Week upon us, there's a lot to do to prepare for the beautiful liturgies that come with, especially with the Triduum, but then add to that trying to figure out how we need to respect the social distancing guidelines, using the bare number of ministers, and there's certainly not a lot of downtime when you add all that up. Now, that being said, we're very fortunate to have fellow parishioner John Anderson living with us. Now that he's a seminarian, he's expected to live with priests when he's back home, so he's been a great addition to the rectory, helping out with all sorts of things, including these beautiful liturgies that we're preparing for God and for you. I also want to assure you that one of the things we're spending our time doing is praying. If I'm going to tell you to pray, I got to be doing the same thing myself. It's certainly an essential thing for each of us, and especially for us as priests, that we are nourished by God's word and inspired by his guidance, that we know that we have what we need to share with you, including what we say in these reflections. So in that regard, what I have to say to you today is very simple. It's not terribly new, but it's definitely important, and that is simply remain faithful. I mean that in several different ways. Certainly, just remain faithful to God. Remain faithful to the gift of faith that he gave you in baptism. There's certainly a lot of obstacles to that today, but by no means is it impossible. Indeed, it's especially necessary to strive in faithfulness to God in a relationship with him. And the way we do that is in a lot of simple, fundamental ways. It's remaining faithful to our daily disciplines, especially prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. So remain faithful to prayer. Like we've been saying, carve out some time each day for your relationship with God in prayer. Especially take time to pray with your family on Sunday. Remain faithful to the St. Joseph consecration. I know I've found that especially helpful to know that St. Joseph is there guiding us through these unknown waters. I hope that the same is true for you. Remain faithful to your Lenten penances, especially during this last week, this Holy Week. If you've been joining me in fasting on Wednesdays and Fridays, persevere. Fasting, remarkably enough, is a really important way of remaining spiritually strong. And keep in mind that for all Catholics ages 18 to 60, Good Friday is an obligatory day of fasting, and the Church even encourages us to continue that fast through Holy Saturday. Of course, be careful if your health is frail and make the necessary adjustments, but there's a great deal of fruit that comes from fasting even in these difficult times, especially in these difficult times. Remain faithful to almsgiving. So many of you have been able to continue to be generous to the parish in general and our outreach efforts in particular. And I'm very, very grateful for that. But whether or not you're able to be generous in this way, there's plenty of ways you can be generous. There's food drives taking place. You can call someone who you think is feeling lonely or might need some help. And even just kindness to the other members of our family is so important, even crucial. It may be one of the most difficult things we do, but it's certainly a great act of charity. And likewise, at the very least, just pray for each other. That too is a great act of charity. Finally, I hope you're able to make use of our live stream options listed with this post. It's certainly not the same as being here, but think of it as following along with your pew missal to raise your minds and your hearts up to the Lord. It can be helpful to place a crucifix and other images of the Lord and the saints near your screen as a way of reminding us that our worship is directed towards God, that when we look at the crucifix, when we look at the images of the saints, that those help to channel our worship to God, our veneration to the saints, and in this case, they help to remind us that it's not directed towards our computers or our TVs. This may very well be the strangest and even most difficult Holy Week and Easter we've experienced thus far in our lives, maybe even ever. But if we remain faithful, if we cultivate that gift of faith first given to us in baptism, it might be one of the best Lents, one of the best Holy Weeks, one of the best Easters yet. May God bless you and keep you in His care, and may the Blessed Mother intercede for you.